Greetings, gamers. My name's Dvang. Welcome to the inaugural episode of Dvang Games. This episode is going to be pretty fitting, I think. I've chosen a game that is, I think most would call it a classic. I certainly would. It is, it is Pandemic. So this is probably one of the pioneers in cooperative gaming in recent times. Well, I guess relatively recent. It's been a while since Pandemic first came out. But it is certainly, I would say it was a classic. It is a great introductory game for cooperative gaming and gaming in general. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick overview of the theme of the game for those who are not familiar with Pandemic and want to know more, as well as a quick overview of some of the basic rules and how it works and the victory conditions for anybody who's interested. For those who don't want to hear any of that and just want to get right to the gameplay or already know it and want to get to the gameplay, down in the description I will have a time code for you to jump to start with the actual gameplay. So I'll leave it there for now. You folks who want to jump to the gameplay, go ahead and do that. I'm going to do some little bit of talking here for those who want to know more about Pandemic. I will also say, quick, before you guys all go, I am using one of the early editions of Pandemic. I know there is a later edition. There are some rule tweaks, and I think there's a couple little additions to it, but I am not using that. I am using the older version of Pandemic. So you may notice some changes between what you might purchase at the store nowadays and what I have, what you see me playing. That is simply an edition version. As far as I know, they're pretty minor. Couple tweaks on some of the character abilities and things like that. So, leave it at that. Pandemic. So what is Pandemic? Pandemic is a cooperative game, obviously, so it's everybody against the game. The players play as a team of scientists, members of the CDC, and we are going to trot around the globe fighting diseases as they come about and trying to eventually cure all the diseases. So there are 4 different colored diseases. There is black, red, blue, and yellow, and they are regionalized essentially. And the players each have a special ability based on what skill they are, which character they have chosen, and that will influence some of the gameplay. And basically the way to win is for the players to cure all 4 diseases. We'll kind of get to the curing in a little bit. There are several ways to lose, which is typical of cooperative games. There are, if you ever run out of tokens for a disease and you can't place down any more tokens of the disease, the players lose. There are a couple tracks that if the track gets to the end of that track, the token marker for that track gets to the end of the track, the players lose. Also, there is a deck of cards, which you'll see the player cards. If the cards run out, the players lose. So there are a number of ways to lose. That's how cooperative games in many ways make it more of a challenge than going up against competitively against an actual thinking opponent, because there's only so much that obviously the game mechanics can do. It is a great introductory game. The theme is not too fantastical for a lot of players that you're introducing to gaming, as opposed, I'm talking gaming such as Monopoly, Chutes and Ladders. Boy, they might have even pressed into Risk, which actually is kind of more the futuristic kind of gaming, I guess I would say, fantastical gaming that you normally see. But things like, said Monopoly or Sorry, things like that are different. You know, those older generation of games are not the modern board games. And a lot of people, there are still a lot of people who don't know about those, you know, these newer board games, newer being obviously relative, since you know, pandemic is you know, sort of brought them to the forefront. But so it's a good introductory game because it's not dragons, it's not space aliens. So people who aren't necessarily, you know, inured to that, they're not as you know, acquainted with those sorts of themes, you know, they can get this. So, you know, they're diseases, and they're trying to cure them. And it's so thematically, it's a good kind of segue into the cooperative realm, as well as, you know, the less common, you know, old school style of board games that they typically think about when you say, hey, let's go play board games. You think, you know, a lot of people still in this day and age think Monopoly or, you know, Acquire or some of those older style board games. So Pandemic is great for that. We've introduced a number of people to Pandemic and kind of brought them into the fold, and then moved from Pandemic and cooperative that to other more advanced cooperative games, Zombicide, and things like that. So that's what I will say for that, and sort of the introduction and thematically kind of how, you know, what the intent of the game is and how good it is to introduce people to it. Okay, folks, here we are with the sort of the setup phase. I'm going to kind of talk through some of the setup, and it'll get into some of the rules for the game. Obviously, so we have a map of the world, as you can see. And I don't know how easy it is going to see on here. Maybe I can zoom in just a smidgen. But there are lines, red lines, connecting various cities. So these are all cities, major, relatively large major cities of the world. Obviously, not getting all of them, but there's a large number of them. The players will start here in Atlanta, where the CDC is, and you start with a research station. It's a little house there, and that will be important. Obviously, we have the 4 different diseases, the cubes for them, and these are some containers from an expansion, the Outbreak On The Brink expansion. Some handy containers for the various cubes for the different diseases. And as you can see, they're kind of color-coded, and so are the areas of the map. So blue is over here in Europe and North America. That is primarily where the blue cubes are going to spawn. Yellow is down here in Central America, South America, and Africa. You have black. The black disease is here is in kind of Eastern Europe, North Africa, through middle of Asia, and then the Far East, Eastern Asia and Australia, is going to be the red disease. And those are the 4 diseases that the players want to cure to win the game. Now, each player is going to get a roll card. So the roll cards look like this. So here is a researcher, and they have, if you go by this, we certainly don't because we like our particular colors, but it does make it easy to identify who is who for those who have issues with that. But they have obviously said the color pawn that you can use and associate it. But there's a researcher, a scientist, a medic, an operations expert, a troubleshooter, and they all have special abilities for what they in particular can do. Now, again, some of these are from the On The Brink expansion, and also keep in mind that to the base game. And keep in mind that this is also, again, the older expansion, as I said, because it's the older base game, as opposed to the newer. But everybody's going to get a roll card that says what they do, and we will obviously put our tokens, our pawns, on the map board. I'm going to use yellow and blue, and so everybody starts there in Atlanta. We have the Outbreak track here, starts at 0, goes up to 8. If the token on the Outbreak always ever gets to 8, the players lose. And we'll talk about how the outbreaks work. There is the infection rate track here, which will indicate it will increase over the course of the game, and it will tell you how many infection cards the players are drawing each turn. Again, we'll get to that. Then for setup, we have player cards. So the player cards are these cards. All right, I'm gonna go that way. So basically, there is a card for every city, one card for every city on the board. And they are colored, you can see, based on the color of the city. And that is going to be important. These cards are going to let the players do a lot of things, but they are also crucial to winning the game. But we need to make character hands and make some specific decks real quick. There are also some special event cards. So these are special cards that have a one-time use where they do something. They may move, a pawn across the world. A player can move across the world. They can stop infection cards from being drawn, and infection cards are bad. So you get 2 of those per player. So we randomly shuffle, and I'm doing a 2-player game, so we're going to shuffle those 2 cards into the stack of player cards here. Okay. And then based on the number of players, players start with a certain number of cards. So in a 2-player game, we start with 4 cards each. So I'm going to take 4 cards and 4 cards. And in fact, I probably do want to zoom out a little bit. Sorry. And that way I can kind of show the hands here. And hopefully this will come out okay for you all. And I will get a roll for our characters in a moment. But those are our hands. Then what we do is we have to make the actual player card deck. Now this can be a little bit tricky, so depending on how difficult you want to make this, there are epidemic cards. And these are going to get placed in that deck at certain spots. So basically, for an introductory game, to make an easy game, it's going to be 4 piles. So we're going to take 4 epidemic cards. We'll go ahead and play on easy. Just again, introductory game, show you all how to play. So we take 4 epidemic cards. So what we want to do, and you notice the backs of the epidemic cards are the same as the regular player cards. So we are going to make 4 piles. 2, 3, 4. 1 each with an epidemic card. And then we are going to break them out into even piles. I think I did it. Did I count that right? 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Just make sure there might be, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, I think there's just 1 left over. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. Yep. So there was 1 card left. And so we shuffle these individual piles. Okay. You just want to get them as even as possible. And so somewhere in each quarter of the deck, there's going to be one of those epidemic cards. And each of those epidemic cards is going to increase the infection rate by 1. So it starts out at 2, 2, 2, and then it goes to 3, 3, and then 4, 4. So obviously, you're playing an easy game. You've only got 4 piles. This is only going to move up 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, and it doesn't, the highest is a 3. At a 5th pile, it's going to move up to a 4, and so on. You add the 6th pile for the heroic game, for when you've mastered things, that obviously will speed you along towards the infection rate. Okay, so we have our player deck set up there. Now we shuffle the infection cards. So the infection cards, again, have one card per location, and again, they are colored. These cards will spawn the cubes. So depending on what cards are drawn, that will be where a cube of that color will show up. So if we draw Washington, D.C., which is a blue card, then we will get a blue cube on Washington, or there potentially might be more, depending. So we shuffle these up. That's pretty good. Now, as if that wasn't bad enough, we need to start with some disease on the board. So we're going to draw 3 cards where we're going to put 3 cubes of whatever color is drawn. Then we're going to have 3 cards where there are 2 cubes of the drawn color, and then 3 cards where one cube is placed. So we start out with Kinshasa. Guess that's how it's pronounced. So that's going to be 3 cubes right there. Okay. Next one, Kolkata. We'll get 3. The next one is Baghdad, gets 3. Now we're on 2s. So we get 2 red in Shanghai, 2 black in Chennai. I apologize for pronunciation, some of these. And then 2 in Bogota. All right, now we're at 1s. We've got 1 in Mumbai, 1 in Los Angeles, and 1 in Bangkok. Alright, no blues, so no cubes near us, which is going to be somewhat unfortunate. But now, what we do, so now we'll talk more about what's happening here with the rules now that we're set up. Oh, and I should grab 2 roll cards. And simply put, to make this easy, relatively, or I guess I shouldn't say easy, simple for us, I'm just going to choose, and I have chosen to take the medic and the scientist. So the medic has the ability to remove cubes off the board easily, and the scientist can research a cure with only 4 cards instead of 5. And we'll talk about those when we get to it. In fact, we probably should kind of talk about it. So how do you win? How do you win the game? How do you lose the game? I already kind of alluded to that. So if we need to add cubes and we run out, so if one of these trays is empty, we have to add cubes. Not just if it goes empty. If we have to add cubes, we don't have any more cubes, then we lose. There's no more left in the supply. If we get an 8th outbreak, the players lose. And if we go through the deck of cards, we lose. We win if we cure all 4 diseases. So how do you get a cure for a disease? Well, to cure a disease, you need 5 cards of the same color, and you need to get those, one player has to have them in their hand, get them to a research station, and then spend an action to cure the disease. So you need 5 of these cards, and all of the same color. So you need 5 blue cards to cure blue. You need 5 red cards to cure red, and so on. And that's in hand for one person. Now, obviously, the scientist only needs 4 cards, so that makes curing diseases a little bit easier. Now, what we also need to talk about is a hand size. So, players have a hand size of 7. So we're talking to cure, normally you need 5 cards. So you're carrying around 5 cards that you can't use for anything in order to be able to cure something. Now obviously once you cure it, then you can use them for other things. What other things can you use cards for, you may ask? Well, there are a number of actions that players can do. Now players have 4 actions each turn that they can do, and they're going to do them in order. And they have these handy little cards that tell you actions you can do. So you have basic actions, and then you have special actions. So we'll kind of go over the basic actions. So the first thing you can do is you can drive or ferry. So that's moving your pawn on the map board 1 connection. So you can see these red lines, you can move your pawn 1 for 1 action. Okay, now you can also do a direct flight. Direct flight, what does that mean? Direct flight is you discard a card to move your pawn to the city pictured on it. So, if I have this Madrid card, I can discard this card, spend an action, discard this Madrid card to move to Madrid. Easy enough. But again, these cards are also necessary in order to cure a disease and win the game. And there's a limited number, and if you go through that deck, there's no reshuffling that. So if you go through all of them, then you can easily lose the game. What else do we have? We have what's called a charter flight. What is a charter flight? Charter flight is discard the card showing your current city to move to any city on the board. So take our example. If I'm in Madrid and I spend an action and discard the Madrid card, I can go to any city on the board. Again, you're discarding a card that you may need to cure, but sometimes that's necessary to allow you to save the actions to move across the board long distances. And what's left is the shuttle flight. So it's moved to a city containing a research station if your pawn is in a city with a research station. So Atlanta starts with a research station. As other actions, if there was a research station somewhere else on the board, for 1 action you could move from Atlanta to wherever that was. So if there was a research station here in Beijing, for 1 action, a pawn could move from Atlanta to Beijing. So that saves, obviously, from spending cards to move those long distances. Now, we also have the special actions, which is, the first one is build a research station. You discard the card showing your current city to build a research station there. So if I have the Shanghai card, and I am in Shanghai, I can discard this card to build a research station there. In general, that would be more cost effective for travel. Now, it doesn't take me or anybody else there, but in the future it means people could then move between Atlanta and Shanghai for 1 action without spending any cards, which can, again, be very useful. It's all about the economy of your actions and what you do with them. Okay, other special actions you can do is discover a cure, as we talked about. Discard 5 cards of the same color to cure a disease of that color. But your pawn has to be in a city with a research station. So, either try to get back to Atlanta or build a research station, have somebody build a research station. You know, if we're close to each other and, you know, I've got 4 or 5 cards of the color, I've got enough cards to cure, and, you know, one of my allies, one of my other players, you know, is nearby with a card of a similar color that isn't needed, obviously, to cure it, they can build a research station near me so that I can cure it. And last treat disease. So, if you take an action to treat a disease, you remove 1 cube from the city your pawn occupies. If the disease has been cured, you remove all cubes of that color. So, for example, there are 3 black cubes in Baghdad. My pawn Where did I put? I don't know where the blue pawn is. Yellow pawn, for now, is in Baghdad. Does a treat disease. For each treat disease action, it removes 1 cube. If the black disease has already been cured, it doesn't prevent disease cubes from coming out, but it does allow for 1 treat disease action to remove all 3 cubes. So curing a disease not only gets you close to winning the game, is also very useful for, there's the blue one, for keeping the cubes down, which we'll talk about what happens with the cubes. But those are all the actions that you can do. Oh, and there's one more action. Oh, sorry, I didn't do that. It was treat disease, is share knowledge. You can pass a card from one player to another. Okay, but both pawns have to be in the same city, and the card that's passed has to be for that city. So you give somebody a card, and it has to be the card for that city. So again, as the example, so we have Madrid. If both of us, so this is yellow's hand, and we are, both blue and yellow are in Madrid, yellow's turn, as an action, yellow can pass the blue Madrid card to blue. All right, so that is a way to try to get cards for somebody to cure. Try to give them those extra cards to cure the disease if they don't have it. You can also pass as an action and do nothing. Okay, if you've only got 3 things you want to do, 3 actions you want to do on a turn, you can pass and not do anything with your 4th action or what have you. There are other roles who can do other additional things outside that. So I will mention, since we're talking about that, the scientist. We said the scientist only needs 4 cards to cure instead of 5. The medic, okay, when they do a treat disease, they treat as if it was cured. So they remove all cubes of that color when they do a treat disease, as opposed to just removing a single cube. Now, what's left? Once the players have done their turn, so a player will do their turn, take their 4 actions, then they draw 2 more of the cards, of the player cards. Then they have to spawn cubes. So then they will draw a number of cards equal to the infection rate, and they will place a cube on the board. Now, that's usually not a problem. So if we draw, Moscow, they'd put 1 cube on Moscow. Go to the next card, St. Petersburg, they would put 1 cube on St. Petersburg. However, there is this concept called an outbreak. So if a player is required to add a cube, and there are already 3 cubes of that color in it, there's an outbreak. So we increase the outbreak by 1. We don't add a 4th cube. What happens is it spreads to all adjacent, all connecting cities. So we take Baghdad here. If we draw the Baghdad card, remember there's only 1 of each card in here, but these will get put back into this deck at some point. When that happens, if the Baghdad card is drawn and there are still 3 in Baghdad, instead of adding a 4th, we are going to get a cube in each connecting city, and boom, we've just put down 5 new cubes for black. So it's easy enough to lose due to an outbreak. And again, if it outbreaks 7 more times or 8 more times, the players lose. So keeping down the piles of 3 so there aren't any outbreaks is also something that needs to be done. Now, I had mentioned that these cards, the cards in the discard, get put back here. What happens is, as the players go through the player deck, if they get one of those epidemic cards, I already said it moves this track up by 1, but what it also does is you take the bottom card of this deck as a new one, as a new card, you reveal it, you place 3 cubes into that city. So if I pulled, London, that was what this bottom card was. London would get 3 blue cubes. It would get put into that discard pile. Then this discard pile gets shuffled and placed on top. So all of these ones, that have already had infections in them, they already have cubes, will get placed on top. So you can see this can get very difficult. If we get an epidemic early on, all of these that we haven't had a chance to knock down, Baghdad, Kinshasa, Kolkata, are going to be a danger of an outbreak, because this, they could be the top cards shuffled in and put back on top of that deck. So, and that happens every time an epidemic card is drawn. So the game can be, there is a bit of randomness and a bit of difficulty sometimes with the game when you draw an early epidemic card in the first part. Obviously, it becomes challenging later on if you get too close together. Because remember, this deck was split into quarters, which means you're going to have, and that epidemic card is somewhere randomly in that quarter. So you could have, say the top quarter, the epidemic card's the last card, and you could have the second quarter, the epidemic card is the top card, and so you have them back to back or really close to each other, and then that becomes a challenge, because obviously these go back on top. You draw, somebody takes their turn, gets like 2 cards, oops, now you got another epidemic. Now these go back on top again, right? So with the one additional one from the bottom, which has 3 cubes placed on it. So that city's always a danger. Well, those are the basics of the game. And that's probably a little bit more in depth than what I really wanted to go into, but that should be a good entry point there for everybody. And so now I think we're set up and we can get to the gameplay. Okay, and here is some actual gameplay, folks. So we've got the scientist here on the left. We've got the medic here on the right. Oops, we will start in Atlanta. So the scientist, his hand is a government grant, which lets him add a research station to any city for free, which will be awesome. Very useful, especially for the 2-player. He's got a Shanghai card. It has 2 blue, which is Milan and Madrid. And then we have the medic, who has a Kolkata, a Santiago yellow, and 2 blues, New York and Essen. And as you can see, we have already set up the board. We have some yellows down there, Kinshasa, Bogota, Los Angeles. We have a fair number of black disease cubes in Baghdad, Mumbai, Chennai, and Kolkata. And then a couple reds, just Shanghai and Bangkok. So, we're looking at these hands, and normally I say, well, the scientist can cure with 4 cards only, and the medic gets to remove all cubes, right? And so normally I'd be like, well, we've got 4 blue, so hey, we could go try to cure blue right away, because then the blue cards are like free essentially. We don't need to hold them for a cure, so we can use them to move around and things like that. Unfortunately, there are no blue cubes, so there's no reason for us to hang around in the blue area. In fact, we want to try to get the medic out into the black area. So trying to get them together to trade the blue cards I don't know how feasible that's going to be. I mean, we do have New York, which is fairly close. Because remember, you have to be in the city that you're giving. So the medic would want to give the cards to the scientist. So New York or Essen. Obviously, Essen's pretty far. New York wouldn't be too bad, but it's kind of a waste for both of them to go to New York, and then that's all they do. So I think we're just going to hope the scientist can get some blue cards on his own. Now, what I think might be a great idea is, we don't have a research station over there on Beijing. That was part of the rules tutorial and whatnot. So, but I think what we will do, I think we will actually go ahead and just use the research grant that goes into the box. We're going to go ahead and put a research station here on Kolkata, I believe. Just for that fast movement to get over there. Actually, I'm wondering if Delhi might be better. Because I'm looking at, we want to get Baghdad down, and we want to get Kolkata down ASAP, and then Kinshasa if we can get there, but that's pretty far away. But those definitely have a lot of links. And I'm looking at the medic moving with their 4 actions, and of course the scientist moving for his 4 actions. So I think what we're gonna do is he's going to put it here in Delhi. And then his 4 actions are, he's going to move. Oh, by the way, the scientist, I guess I should use the colors and match the ones. They need to be visible enough. So the scientist is white and orange is the medic. Is that going to be visible? Yeah, it looks like that'll be visible enough. So the scientist is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So those are the 4 actions for the scientist. So now he takes his 2 cards. Okay, and he's got Washington, another blue, perfect, and Karachi. So that will be handy. All right, medic's turn. So the medic's going to go 1, 2, 3 to Baghdad, 4, and get rid of all of those black cubes. And then the medic next turn can go to Kinshasa. But medic draws 2 cards and gets San Francisco and Cairo. Okay. Well, that's interesting. We have a lot of blue cards now. Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. So before the medic went, we need to do the 2 cards, the 2 infection cards for the scientist. So Sao Paulo gets 1, and Milan gets 1. Sorry about that. So focused on seeing if we get the epidemic cards. All right, so it was the end of the medic's turn, and the medic has to do their infection, which is a Jakarta, gets a red, and a Manila gets a red. So the medic has finished. We go back to the scientist. So the scientist, so what are we going to do? Again, we're not really close enough. Now we're not close enough to blue. Although we do have, he has the Washington. I was going to say, if the medic had the Washington, we are actually close enough to possibly do a quick pop over. But I think we're going to go one more turn. Let's see if we can get the scientist a 4th blue just from drawing cards. Probably unlikely, but we can we can still try to keep them down. So he's going to go 1, take one of those, 2, clear out one of those. Sorry. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so he's done. And he draws his 2 cards. We do not get the epidemic card. He gets a yellow and a black. So he gets a Khartoum and... a Khartoum and Mumbai. Then he infects, so we get a Hong Kong. And a Paris. Okay. So it is now the medic's turn. So the medic wants to go 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So we're a little bit safe. We've been kind of lucky we haven't gotten an epidemic yet. When it gets early, it's good. Of course, I just said something, so one of these is going to be an epidemic. Oh, it's not. Okay. So Tokyo and a mobile hospital. So the current player may remove 1 cube from every city he drives or ferries through this turn. And they can play it at any time. Okay. Alright, so now we need to infect. So we get 1 in Atlanta. So the blue one in Atlanta. And the next one is in Osaka. So we get a red in Osaka. Good. Doing well. Well, since we have things kind of managed, the question's going to be, can we get to get the scientist to blue at this point? We have San Francisco, Essen, and New York. So obviously the challenge is getting the medic over here. Or over in a blue, one of New York, Essen, or San Francisco, to exchange their cards. The medic does have a Tokyo. So that might be the easiest, to fly to Tokyo, spend the Tokyo card, and then go to San Francisco. So the question is, can the scientist get to San Francisco? Be 1 to move here, 2, 3, 4. So the answer is yes. So I think we're going to do that. We can get blue cured. So the map isn't too horrible right now. And this is I think, the perfect opportunity to try to get one of them cured, so then we can use the blues as we need. So this is the scientist's turn. It's just going to be right, because that was the entire 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 into San Francisco. So draws the 2 cards. And of course, there is the epidemic. But that's okay. That's okay. He's got a Tehran and the epidemic card. So the epidemic card kind of gets set off to the side. So we increase the infection marker by 1. Alright, then we infect. So we're going to grab card off the bottom, which is Miami. So the Miami is going to get 3 cubes, which isn't too horrible, considering we have a good number of cards in here. So then this card goes into the discard pile, and then this is called Intensify. So we shuffle everything, this whole discard pile, back up, and then the discard pile goes on top of the deck. Which means all the places that have had cubes will now get cubes again. The only real one to worry about is if we get Miami. Alright. And speaking of which, so now he does his infection. And that is the scary part. You know, when you've only got a couple cards in here, you know, it all comes up here, and then you immediately go into the infection. So We get a Kinshasa. Okay. Still at a rate of 2, we have a Bangkok. But luckily we had enough time to get to all the danger ones. All right. So it is now the medic's turn. I think we're still going to forge through with the plan. And the medic can actually get kind of close to Miami. Not quite on this turn, but next turn the medic will be able to take care of Miami. So, spending the Tokyo cards. That is a discard. Tokyo card is basically out of the game. Okay. To fly to Tokyo for 1. 2 to move to San Francisco. 3 to trade the San Francisco card to the scientist. Now the scientist there's a hand limit of 7. So the scientist has 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The scientist is going to have to discard a card. And that is going to be kind of sucky. But we already threw 1 red away. I'm going to throw his yellow. Trying to make sure I don't throw too many cards away. We have enough black. He's got 3. Potentially, he draws another black card. He could also cure the black disease as well. So he's going to be very close. Anyways, that was 1 to move to Tokyo, 2 to move to San Francisco, 3 to trade the San Francisco card, 4 to move to Los Angeles. So there'll be medic's going to be in a good position for next turn. All right, we draw 2 cards, and we get a Buenos Aires and a St. Petersburg. We are at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so the medic is in good. Oh, I forgot the mobile hospital special event. And so we are 1 over. That's okay. I'm actually going to discard the New York card, because we're not going to really need the blue cards once we cure it. They're good for moving, right? And New York's pretty close to Atlanta, because I'm not ready to waste that mobile hospital yet. And then we infect. So as long as these aren't Miami, so Sao Paulo gets 1. Okay, and Shanghai gets 1. Okay. What else? That is it for the medic. So it is now the scientist's turn. So the scientist needs to get to a research station. So the scientist is going to go 1, 2 to Atlanta, 3 to cure blues. We take these 4 cards. They get discarded. Blue is now cured. Now, I will mention this. This is something that I did not touch on during the rules explanations, because it's something that only sometimes happens. If you have a disease, a cured disease, that ever has no cubes left on the board, they become eradicated. So this token actually has, so cured side, little beaker, we got the cure. Okay, little sunset is eradicated. So the advantage of curing, again, is that people can simply, with 1 action, remove all cubes of that color. The medic, the initial part of the medic, since that's the medic's basic ability, is the medic can just walk through the city for no actions, or can get rid of those cubes for no action. They just walk through, kind of like the mobile hospital, right? They walk through cubes of blue. Now that we've cured it, the medic will just wipe it out without needing an action. They can just cure it. So eradication's nice, but you have to remove all cubes. The only reason I'm actually pointing this out is that blue only has 3 cubes left. Now, granted, they could still potentially spawn some, but there weren't very many blue in that discard pile either. So it is possible to eradicate. So eradication sort of takes blue to the cured disease to the next level, in the fact that blue cards that are pulled are ignored. No new blue cubes get onto the board. which makes things really nice. You can just completely ignore the blue area, or whichever area of the, disease that has been eradicated. So it is potential, there is potential that we can eradicate blue. So just wanted to kind of point that out. So what do we have? We have, this was, and that was kind of a tangent here. So we just cured blue, and we used 1, 2, 3 actions to cure blue. So 4, he's going to go ahead and remove that blue. And let's see what we get now. At the end of his turn, he gets a Toronto card and a Jakarta card. All right, well, the Toronto card's not going to be useful other than if we need to move to or from Toronto. So he could go to Toronto, use the Toronto card to teleport, to move, I guess. Not really teleport. Get a charter flight to somewhere else. All right, and we're still infecting at 2. So we're going to infect Chennai and Bogota. Okay, so both Bogota and Miami here are in danger. Well, Bogota, not so much, because remember, Bogota's not going to get an additional 1 until we get an epidemic and this gets reshuffled, which potentially could be any of these cards. That's probably, we are probably about halfway through, or a quarter, yeah, 2 quarters, I don't know, somewhere in this second quarter. Actually, I guess with 2 players, we probably still have a fair number of cards before we actually hit the end of the first quarter of cards. Remember, every quarter of that deck has an epidemic card, because we're playing on easy. We've only got the 4 epidemic cards. You can tell, obviously, if there's more epidemic cards, you're getting the epidemics. This deck is, this is getting shuffled over more frequently. But we're going to do that. So it is the medic's turn. So the question is, do we try to get rid of those? Actually, so this is what I'm thinking of. We have the mobile hospital. So we can actually, as long as we keep this card, we can actually let the scientist next turn move to Toronto and then fly out to like Paris or Milan and just move through those. He doesn't have to spend the action to get rid of them. And this will free up the medic to spend her turn, to go 1, 2, 3. So Miami's no longer a danger. And 4. Yes, we'll clean up Bogota. Then we'll have the medic come over here to Shanghai. So let's get 2 cards. And you can tell with more players, this deck, remember, we lose if we get through this deck. We also get the epidemics faster. With more players, you're going faster through that deck because everybody's drawing 2 cards. Oh, but speaking of which, we have an epidemic. So this is going to be dangerous because we don't have very many cards here. So Shanghai and Bogota are both danger. All right. So we increase the infection rate. We're still at 2 because remember, we are still playing on easy. And that is only our second epidemic. Okay, we take a card from the bottom. And that is New York. And see, this is where if it was eradicated, we would have ignored that. But unfortunately, it is not. New York gets added there. And now we shuffle this. So that was a really bad timing. One more turn would have been would have been better if the scientists had a turn. All right, so these go on the top, and then we draw 2 cards for the medic, and we draw Bangkok. All right, that is good. And we draw, dun dun, Sao Paulo. Okay. All right. So the danger ones are going to be Bogota and Shanghai. Oh, and New York. All right. Well, I think the scientist just needs to set himself up for next turn. You know, what happens, happens. He's going to go 1, 2, 3, because remember, blue's cured, so he gets rid of all of them. 4. He's got the Toronto card. Next, we're going to be able to fly to wherever he needs. And that helps, then that cleared out New York, so we won't have a bunch there. All right, so his 2 cards are New York. Thank goodness that we cleared that out. Oh, in fact, actually, I didn't even need to do that, because to go to Toronto, well, it's there. And Chennai. Okay, and we had a Sao Paulo. All right, so it's the medic's turn. Oops, and need to get the two cards. So we have a Bangkok and a Los Angeles. That's 3, 6, 7, 8 cards. Ooh, what do we get rid of? I guess we get rid of a Los Angeles card. Because we're so close on both red and black. Alright. Now it is the medic's turn, because we already did the 2 cards. So the medic, what are you doing, Mr. Medic? Oh, the medic had to get rid of a card as well. And I would have dropped one of the black ones. My bad. Gotta keep in mind these 2, 4, 6, 7 cards here. So the medic. So the medic is going to, let's see, we had a Bogota. So we did not have a Bogota, so we did have a Sao Paulo. So the Sao Paulo is not as dangerous. So 1. Now we need to get over there. And how do we get, is there an easy way to get over there? There is not. I need St. Petersburg. It's just as fast to go to Sydney's not particularly close, which is their other card. Yuck. Well, I can do this. This might be, I don't know if this is faster. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Or, we've got both these cards to spend. And she is running up against her hand limit. So, if we end in St. Peter, so 1, yuck. Because I was thinking, yeah, okay. So 1, 2 to move to Essen, 3 to move to St. Petersburg, 4 to use the St. Petersburg card, to move to Shanghai, yeah, Shanghai. So she'll be there and ready. Might even use the mobile hospital to help. And actually, that might be a good thing to do, is use the mobile hospital. No, I want to try to, we use the mobile hospital, try to let him potentially, if he can, eradicate blue. Because he could go 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And eradicate blue. We are basically just worried about, because we have the Bangkok, right? So we're just worried about Shanghai. We have the Chennai and the Bangkok are in here. So, ooh, that's going to be rough though, because it does have to, well, we do have to get through, yeah, two more turns. Hers, because we're still finishing up her turn. And his. Is it worth, see, the eradication can be a little bit of a double-edged sword here, right? So it's one of those shinies, right? That can distract you and cause you to have issues. But we're okay. We don't have too many outbreaks. I'm actually gonna save it, sure. So I'm not gonna play the mobile hospital. We'll just go with what she's got. So what do we got? We've got a Sao Paulo and a Beijing card. Okay, and we have Kinshasa. Gets a yellow. Yep, and there's Shanghai. So at least now you get to see what happens when you have basically an overrun or an outbreak, I guess. So we're going to increase our outbreak tracker by 1 because we've had an outbreak. Instead of placing a 4th token or cube on Shanghai, each connecting city gets 1. Quite a few there, as you can see. And it certainly lowers the number of cubes. You know, that took 6 cubes out of that container. But I think we're still doing okay. So it is now the scientist's turn. We're going to go ahead and play this. Let's do it. And he's actually simply going to go... Actually, he's going to use his Toronto card. Because I think I would rather go the other way and end up close to Atlanta for the ability to get over here to Delhi and help out over here if necessary. So we're actually going to use the Toronto to come here to Milan. And that will get rid of that. As 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. There's no blue cubes on the board. Blue is cured, so blue is now eradicated. So now we can ignore all blue cards that come out of the deck, out of the infection deck here. Well, that is it for him. And he gets an Istanbul and a Seoul. So he's got 8 cards, 4 of each, so he can cure either black or red. And I think red is more of a danger right now. And if we cure it, it allows the medic to simply run through and get rid of red cubes. So and the reason I'm saying this is I have to discard a card. Right? So let us get rid of, I guess, Istanbul. So next turn he's going to cure red. That will free up our hands to discard or use red cards to move around. All right. Next 2 is Bogota and Mumbai. Where are you, Mumbai? There you are. All right. It is now the medic's turn. So the medic is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Get rid of all those. Great. So the medic gets 2 cards, Paris, and an airlift. So the airlift card is move a pawn, yours or another player's, to any city. And she's got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards. This is 8 cards. We don't really need the Paris card. So she's going to discard the Paris card. I was wondering if I should use that specifically to let the... Because I could just use it and move, and that would save 2 actions for the scientist to get back and cure. But I think we're going to leave it at that. There could be a different place where that airlift could be super important to get somebody to if we draw another epidemic soon. Let's infect. We have Los Angeles. And we infected Los Angeles, so the next is Manila. So Manila gets another cube for red. So that is it for the medic. So it is now the scientist's turn. Scientist is going to go 1, 2, 3 to cure red. So we now have the cure on red. And 4 to come to Delhi. That way he could be prepared to help out here in Chennai or Mumbai or even with red over there. So he gets his 2 cards. Hopefully one's a black, and then he can cure black. Ooh, he does have another black, so that's good. We'll be able to cure black, but it is an epidemic. So we're going to raise the infection rate. So the infection rate is now 3. So we take the bottom card, which is Ho Chi Minh City. Let's put 3 there. This comes back in here. Okay, so there are a couple danger spots, mostly Ho Chi Minh City, but we're not hurting for outbreaks. Sao Paulo's kind of far away, but not much we can do there. These go back on top. And now we're drawing 3 infection cards. And we get Sao Paulo. All right, so that is going to be another outbreak. And it's going to put 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. Notice, now we have a yellow cube on blue. Second is Bangkok. All right, not too horrible. Good thing we did that. I got rid of that. And Bogota. All right, so Bogota is there, but we're okay. We're good. We had Sao Paulo already outbreak there, so now it's up to the medic. So the medic will go. Well, obviously we need to do Ho Chi Minh City. So 1, 2 to get rid of all those cubes at Ho Chi Minh City. Three, 4 to get. Oh, my bad. Hold on. Let me back up here. Because red is cured, which means the medic administers cures for free, so they can treat the disease, basically. And anytime the medic finds himself in a city that contains cubes, they can immediately remove all those cubes. So technically, these would have just disappeared at the time. So the medic can just walk through here. So the other danger that we have also here is Chennai. So we can just walk through. We will need an action to get to Chennai and remove those cubes. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4 to get rid of those cubes. Perfect. All right, and then we draw 2 player cards. And we get a Lagos and a Moscow. Okay. Well, the medic has 4. So the medic might actually, remember, it takes 5 normally. So the medic might be able to cure yellow with just 1 more card. Black is about to be cured. Red is already cured, not likely to be eradicated. I'm just talking about this because we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cards. So the medic, she has to discard 2 cards. So she is actually going to discard Moscow and Sydney. We're going to keep the airlift there. Potentially keep Beijing just for a movement if we need it. Because Beijing's a little bit out of the way. Keep Kolkata in case we really need to move. Sydney was more out of the way, I think, than anything else, and Kolkata is close to the research station. So that's what the medic is going to keep. And now we infect 3 times because we have 3 cards. So Kinshasa, getting back up. Chennai, good thing we cleared that out. And New York, which we can ignore because it has been eradicated. So we don't even put a blue cube down. So that is the good thing about eradication. Again, it's kind of a shiny. If you can do it, it's good to do because it will certainly help immensely. There won't be any other blue outbreaks because the blue cubes will no longer appear on the map. In fact, we can just say this has been eradicated. We can just close that container up. So we are on to the scientist's turn. So the scientist is going to cure black. So now all we need to do is cure yellow. So we need to try to keep in mind if we can get these folks to be there at yellow. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4 back to the research station. All right, that's all he's going to do. So we're going to draw 2 cards. So we get an Osaka and a special event, 1 Quiet Night, which says the next player to begin playing the Infector phase on their turn may skip that phase entirely. That is a great one to have right after there's an epidemic, because it gives you basically a turn, someone's turn, to go and try to clear out, the worst one that you could possibly draw when you flip back over. So we're going to keep that. We're not in a rush to do that. So that is his turn. It is now the medic's turn. Well, the medic, this one's already actually automatically because we are cured. And again, per the rules, it's in effect during all players' turns and does not cost any actions to perform. So it just automatically just her presence. So the medic will go ahead and move. And we'll go 1. Let's get rid of black. There are no more black cubes. That actually eradicates the black disease as well. So now we can ignore all black cards that are drawn. So that was 1. She'll go ahead and spend a Beijing card to move to Beijing. 2. That gets rid of that. 3, 4. We'll get rid of both of those. I'm not necessarily trying to... Actually, let me take that back. Because we do have these. I was thinking of just using up cards, but we do have those that we probably want to deal with. And I mean, they're all in here, but if we do get another epidemic, that would kind of suck. So actually, let's go ahead and do this. We're going to go 1 instead, which I wanted to do anyway to clear off the black cube. Because I've got Kolkata, I'm going to spend the Kolkata card to go 2, 3, 4. We'll start dealing with that. So let's get our 2 cards. We've got a Delhi and a Mexico City. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 cards. I will go ahead and... Delhi, we actually have the research station at Delhi, so I'm not going to get rid of that card. Oh, and that was our 5. I'm going to immediately play the airlift. to simply move her to Atlanta. That is the one card she has to spend. So, start of the medic's next turn, we win the game because we will have cured all 4 diseases. I think we are good. Let's infect. We get our 3 infects. So, Ho Chi Minh City. We have a Los Angeles. And we have a Mumbai, but black has been eradicated, so there is none. No cube placed. It is now the scientist's turn. Not much for the scientist to do. We are just kind of waiting for the medic. So I think what he will do is he'll go ahead and play his Osaka card to take him to Osaka for 1. 2, to remove the cube. 3, 4 to remove the cube just because he can. Then he will actually play the One Quiet Night, which says he does not draw any of his infection cards. Not that we were in danger of losing this particular game. So that was the end of his turn. No infection cards. It's now the medic's turn. Medic she's already in Atlanta, so she's at a research station. She's going to spend her 5 yellow cards to cure the yellow infection. And we have won. Huzzah! Much rejoicing across the world because all of the major diseases, the zombie plague, that has all been cured. At the very least, if not completely eradicated, never to come again. Hey folks, there you have it. There was Pandemic. 2-player, obviously, played on easy, so the game does get more difficult, and even on easy, there can be some just really bad turns. Depends on how the cards come up. You have an early epidemic. In this particular game, the first epidemic was fairly far down, which gave us a number of turns to get to those initial 3-cube hotspots, right? If you get it like on the second player's turn, and you could get some early outbreaks and a lot of cubes spreading around, things can start escalating quickly. So this was a pretty easy game. Mostly not necessarily as a challenge to me, obviously also being fairly experienced at the game, kind of knowing what we wanted to do. Also, these are some of the easier, I guess I should say easier roles for the game, for certain abilities. The scientist being able to cure with just 4 cards, especially with a 2-player game, is very nice. Because you just don't have a lot. The group of players doesn't have a lot of cards, right? So there's not a lot of people you can trade with. Trying to get the 5 cards would be problematic, especially with a hand size of 7, right? Only leaves us 2 other cards. And obviously the medic. The medic is probably one of the best roles in the game, in my opinion. Certainly my wife likes playing the medic. Being able to go around curing, one action, curing cubes, all the cubes in a location. When it's not cured and when it is cured, you just move through them and it removes the cubes. Very nice, very useful to keep the cube count down. Again, especially in a 2-player game where you don't have a lot of people able to go across the board and hit the different hotspots. So I certainly made this an easy game for me to play. Wasn't intended to be a challenge for everybody, just so that you're aware. Again, it's to have fun watching the game, since there's probably people who haven't seen the game somewhere out there, I'm sure. Then you can kind of see how it plays out. So we got a little bit. We did get a couple outbreaks. We did see the mechanics of the game and the movement. Again, it's a very fun game. Very good introductory co-op game. It's not super complex. There is some strategy to it on where people go and when, you know, as you saw early on, as well, do we try to cure blue really quickly since we had all those blue cards, but there weren't any cubes in blue. So, you know, we kind of had them make that decision. It almost bit us, right? We did start getting some stuff coming up just as we were going to go into the blue, and I took that risk. Where you go, what actions you take, how you interact with your other players, your compatriots. You know, there is strategy to the game, but thematically, it's not as fantastical. So a lot of people can kind of slowly ease into, hey, well, this is a cooperative game. It's realistic without being realistic, right? The kind of amount of diseases and curing them and eradicating. It's obviously not that simple in real life, but it's a great introductory, a great gateway game for non-traditional board games like Monopoly, Sorry, Chutes and Ladders, whatever people like to play. And it's also a good gateway game for cooperative games. So each person still has their own abilities, but there is nice coordination without being too in-depth and too much to really think about, per se. And not a whole lot of pieces, just basically some cards and some cubes that go on the board. So, hope you liked it. Hope you had fun with this first episode of Dvang Games. And we played Pandemic. Again, let's kind of circle back real quick to this was basically, I think it is the first edition of the game. Even if it's maybe not the first edition, it's the second edition, I don't know. There's an edition after this. They did a remake, a retool of the game, and that's what's currently in stores right now. So there will be a few differences between some of the characters. I don't know if it's these particular characters or not, the medic and the scientist. I don't know if there's a little bit of difference with some of the cards or the board. I don't think the cards changed at all, although some of the special events may have changed. But I don't know exactly what the changes are. But just be aware that there might be a couple little changes if you do go and pick up Pandemic from your local game store or online, wherever you might buy it, because this is a slightly older edition, so there might be, in fact, I know there are a couple of minor changes. The gameplay mechanics, basically how the game plays, is essentially the same as far as I understand it. So, thanks for watching, everybody. I appreciate it. I appreciate your support. I look forward to doing more of these with different games. I'm going to play a bunch of different games. Some I might even have some other people playing with me to kind of show you or give you that idea of just how fun cooperative games can be when we're all just having a blast and playing against the game. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.